What's up, guys? Nuance Bro checking in. Hispanic Heritage Month recently just ended. And in light of that, I want to talk about a term that is used in conjunction with Hispanic, Latino, Latina, whatever you want to call it. It's this term Latinx. Now, if you're an individual who keeps up with all the political goings-ons, which I assure a lot of you disproportionately do since you watch this channel, you might have heard of this term Latinx. But the vast majority of the population, especially the Hispanic population, have never heard of this term, yet it's a term that is designed to refer to them. So what is Latinx? Well, it's supposed to be a gender-neutral, non-binary term used to refer to people from the Latin Americas or of Hispanic origin. As I'm sure many of you are familiar with, the terms Latino and Latina are gendered terms, so Latinx is a gender-neutral term used to signify support and camaraderie with the LGBTQ community, and just a degender language. Now, the origins of the term are quite murky, but it's generally agreed upon that this came about in the 21st century. If we look at Google Trends, for example, we can see that the search term Latinx really wasn't used at all, really, until around 2015, 2016. Whereas terms like Hispanic have been used pretty consistently throughout. And is it only the most leftist or progressive or wokest members of Congress, for example, or people in academia or social activist circles who are using this term? Well, no, it's actually expanding fairly rapidly. As you can see here, Disney put out a tweet talking about Hispanic/Latinx Heritage Month, where they talk about Latinx employees of Walt Disney Animation Studios. Here you can see the official Twitter page of the Democrats talking about Latinx Americans, sharing what representation in the Biden-Harris administration means to them. You have folks like Julian Castro talking about how the Latinx community won't be bothered by Donald Trump, how they won't be scared of his racist rhetoric. You have the voice over IP service Discord, recently acquired by Microsoft, talking about how they're honoring Latinx Heritage Month by sharing stories of their employees. Even corporate America has stepped in. You see JP Morgan Chase and Company, the CEO letter to shareholders from Jamie Dimon. This is the biggest bank in the United States.
JP Morgan Chase. JP Morgan Chase.
Okay.
JP Morgan Chase.
Stop saying JP Morgan Chase.
They use the term Latinx 16 times in their letter to shareholders from the CEO. And of course, we can't forget the big man himself, the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
There's a reason why it's been harder to get African Americans initially to get vaccinated, because they used to being experimented on. The Tuskegee Airmen and others. People have memories. People have long memories. It's awful hard as well to get Latinx vaccinated as well. Why? They're worried that they'll be vaccinated and deported.
So let's ignore the obvious factual inaccuracies when he's talking about the Tuskegee Airmen experiments, when he actually means the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, which had nothing to do with the Tuskegee Airmen. That aside, he talks about Latinx, which that's not even really how you say it. You don't say Latinx like Kleenex. It's Latinx. But he talks about them not wanting to get the vaccine because they're afraid they're going to be deported. And he uses the term Latinx, as he says. And if you want to say this is just anecdotal examples of politicians using this, well, we can look at the data from Pew Research, as you can see here. Rising share of lawmakers, but few Republicans are using the term Latinx on social media. And we look at it, we see the share of lawmakers in each Congress who used these various terms on Facebook or Twitter during their time in office. And we can see in the 114th Congress, which is around 2015 or so, only about 6% of Democratic lawmakers use the term Latinx. By the 116th Congress, nearly half have used the term Latinx, whereas only 1% of Republicans have. Now you could say, well, maybe this is just the Democrats and people on that side of the aisle being compassionate to people of Hispanic origin or Latinx people, because that's what those people want to be called. There's only one problem. Most Hispanic people have never even heard of this term. As we can see once again from Pew Research, about 1 in 4 US Hispanics have heard of Latinx, but just 3% use it. So here we can see a nice little pie chart. Most Latino adults have not heard of the term Latinx. So you can see 76% have not even heard of the term Latinx. A remaining 20% do not use it. So this is of the people who have heard of it, they don't use it. And only 3% of the entire Hispanic American population uses Latinx. And we can see this broken down. You would imagine probably young people, women in particular, would probably use this the most, and you'd be correct. You can see ages 18 to 29, 42%, still a minority, have heard of the term Latinx, but only 7% use it. And that's the highest demographic here. In fact, those that are English dominant are more likely to use the term Latinx than people who are Spanish dominant, and way more likely to have heard of the term than those who are Spanish dominant. And of those who have heard of the term Latinx, which you would think would actually benefit those who would want to use the term, because they would disproportionately know of the term, still the vast majority believe it should not be used to describe the Hispanic or Latino population. 65% of those who have heard of the term say it should not be used to describe the Hispanic or Latino population. Only 33% of those who have heard of the term say it should be used. And among all Hispanics, when it comes to pan-ethnic terms that are preferred, 61% prefer Hispanic, 29% prefer Latino, only 4% prefer Latinx. Even of the Hispanics who have heard of the term Latinx, only 10% prefer Latinx. Now you might say, oh, well, this is Pew Research. It might just be one poll. This is, you might need another poll to actually confirm this data. Well, let's take a look at Gallup. Here we have a poll from Gallup saying no preferred racial term among most Black and Hispanic adults. And here we can see that most Hispanics actually don't have a preference when it comes to a subgroup label. We can see 23% prefer Hispanic, 15% prefer Latino, 4% prefer Latinx, but the vast majority say it doesn't matter. But when they're asked to choose, we can see this. Hispanic is the most preferred term by Hispanic adults when asked to choose. 57% saying Hispanic, 37% saying Latino, only 5% saying Latinx. So why is it? Why is it that people on the left, Democrats, liberals, whatever you want to call them, disproportionately, especially compared to Republicans, conservatives, or other regular, normal human beings, want to use this term Latinx when referring to people who don't even like this term to begin with, many of whom don't even know the term in the first place, but when they do, even then, they don't like the term. Well, there's actually some great studies on this idea of a competence downshift disproportionately among those on the left side of the political spectrum. And here we can see a perfect example in a meta-analysis by a researcher at Yale titled Self-Presentation in Interracial Settings, the Competence Downshift by White Liberals. Internal meta-analyses revealed that liberals, but not conservatives, presented less competence to Black interaction partners than to white ones. The simple effect was small but significant across studies, and most reliable for the self-reported measure of conservatism. This possibly unintentional but ultimately patronizing competence downshift suggests that well-intentioned liberal whites may draw on low-status/competence stereotypes to affiliate with minorities. So basically, it doesn't matter what the minority group prefers that they be called. It doesn't matter what their level of education or cultural preferences. These people will impose what they think is right onto you, even if you don't like it, even if that's not what you identify with, even if it's recently made up nonsense. So what do we do with all this information? Well, first of all, I would suggest stop using the term Latinx to refer to Hispanic people, especially if you view it as a compassionate and inclusive term for those people. They don't know what it is. Most of them, as we just saw by the data, don't know what the term is, have never heard of it. And those who have heard of it, for the most part, don't like the term. So if you're going to use the term Latinx, I would suggest just using it as a racial slur. Now, obviously, we don't condone racial slurs on this channel. Racism bad, don't do a racism. But if you're going to use the term, that's the way you should use it. But don't use it because it's bad. and racial slurs are bad. Anyways, guys, what did you think? Did you learn anything new from this video? Did you know what the term Latinx was before this video? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Social media links are in the description box below, as well as merch. Support us at nuancebro.com/join. It really helps out the channel, and I'll see you next time, bro.